balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Kind of like that little sing-song kind of thing, sing-song thing that I'm doing there. Sing-song. Anyway. All right, folks, we have got a pretty good show for you tonight. That's right. And I just realized that I don't have another. I had one other item that I wanted to, but you know what? I'll get that in just a few minutes. I'll deal with that later because we have two wonderful segments tonight. Segment number one, of course, is the ever popular pet of the week. Got that at the very end. And I also have a Highlighting America segment coming up as well. And so we'll go ahead and get both of those going. Plus, I don't know if anybody caught it, but Sonia Sotomayor, she smacked her own compatriot in Ketanji Brown Jackson. Took me a second. See, I'm suffering from CRS and sometimers, both. You just got to figure it out which one it is. Anyway, Sotomayor smacked Ketanji Brown Jackson, which basically means that even the leftists on the Supreme Court think that Jackson is unintelligent. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get some things kicked off here. Tonight. Ooh, wait a second. Who do I have? Oh, yes. I think it is. Let me make sure before I go and speak incorrectly. Yes, that is right. It is Ms. T of Texas. Ms. T of Texas is up for the Pledge of Allegiance for tonight. So, oh my goodness. I'm just all kinds of discombobulated right now. See, you guys get me going in the chat, and I end up forgetting to do all the things that I'm supposed to do in order to get everything set up. So here we go. Let's get that one going. Let's get over here because I'm missing Facebook. That's why I'm missing the Facebook chat. So I got to get the Facebook chat up. Come on. Hurry it up. There we go. Oh, I don't see Ms. T over there. No, that's too bad. Hopefully she will be coming in. Or maybe she said she wasn't going to be. I don't remember if she was should join or not, but anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and get Ms. T of Texas up on the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me, and join in. Place your hand over your heart too, by the way, and join in with Ms. T of Texas. As she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, we thank you, Ms. T of Texas, for providing us with that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you'd like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is send it in, record yourself performing the pledge, reciting the pledge, however you want to do it, in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will, of course, get you into the program. Tonight is...
Down to business. That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right. It's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And I am going to end up pissing Monty off, but I have to get rid of it. Here it is. Bullet Bourbon. Frontier Whiskey. Yes, that's right. Bullet Bourbon. Yeah. That's what's in the glass. But, there you go. That's what it is. And, of course, the glass is the True Grit Roots Network. There it is. True Grit Roots Network glass with the requisite stones in the bottom because this is Wednesday. So, that being said, oh, yeah. That's still some good stuff. I know Bonnie doesn't like it. I get it. It's fine. Trying to get rid of it. I am trying to get rid of it. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off with our headline sponsor. And our headline sponsor is True Grit Roots Network because it is Wednesday. TGRN.net is our place on the web. In fact, speaking about that, there it is, TGRN. There's the front page. And you can come there and you can listen directly through your browser right there. You can see the players that are playing right now. You can even see like the icon or the album covers of the stuff that they're playing. You can play it right through your browser right there. The left side, your left is WTBR. That's Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio. The right side is Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. And if you don't want to listen through your browser, you can also download our apps. We have two of them. One for Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, again, on the left. You can go and click on one of those two buttons there, whether it's the App Store that you need or Google Play, and you can download both of those for either Walter Trout or Dallas Moore, or just download both of them, either one. Or, as Bonnie points out, oh, the ever-faithful Bonnie, she says, I bet you can listen to them on Alexa. You absolutely can, Bonnie. That is absolutely correct. You can. All you need to do is say, Alexa, play Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio from Live 365. And you got to make sure you say from. That's why I emphasize it so much. But yeah, you take the name of the which station you want to listen to, whether it's or which channel I should say you want to listen to, whether it's WTBR or DMO, and you basically say their names and say from Live 365. It'll take her a minute maybe to find it, but once she does find it, then all you have to do is say, Alexa, play Live 365, and she'll come back and she'll say, do you want to listen to Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio? And you, of course, wait for her to finish and then say, oh, yes, please. You are so nice. And she'll respond with, she'll play. Anyway, she'll play whatever you played the last time on Live 365. So that's how you get it to go on the Alexa app or your Alexa device. And so anyway, you can carry it with you on your mobile device with the app, or you can listen at home through Alexa or, again, through your browser. You can even do it on your television, too, by the way. Live 365 does have an app that you can listen on your television. You can turn your TV on and you can go to your smart TV. You go to the Live 365 app on your Roku or whatever, and you can listen right there. It is fantastic. You can listen to both stations, not at once, but that's fine. You really wouldn't want that. Believe me, I've tried to listen to two stations at once, and it's really, it's really kind of tough to do that. But anyway, so yeah, you can do that. Just go ahead and tell them you want to listen to Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, and make sure you understand this through Live 365. Or If you have the iHeartRadio app too, you can grab it through iHeart on your mobile device as well. But regardless, head on over to tgrn.net and you can check out both channels. You can check out all of our DJs, our wonderful shows, and everything else, the on-air personalities. You can get their background information and things of that nature. And yeah, so there you go. Go to tgrn.net. That is our home on the web. And also, make sure that you listen on your favorite station. Take us with you. TGRN, that stands for True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Enough about that. Enough about it. Let's talk about us. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm dog sitting for my son. It's a I don't know, I think he's an 8-month-old Alaskan Husky, I think they call it. Yeah. And anyway, he gets into stuff. So excuse me while I kind of take a look and see what the heck he's doing here. Hey, why don't you lay down? Anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and talk about Trump, because, I mean, let's face it, the leftists, I'm surprised the leftists haven't picked up on this. Really, I am really surprised that they haven't picked up on this. But here in Breitbart, President Trump floats federal takeover of D.C. Yeah. And he says crime would be down. Oh, the leftists. I can't imagine that they haven't caught up on this one yet. There's so much going on. They probably just totally missed it. But the reality of the situation is that, yeah, the federal government used to be in charge of D.C. That's right. Pull out your handy-dandy Constitution. Look under Article 1, Section 8. Down a few paragraphs in, you'll see. Oh, I got to make that bigger if I'm going to do that. But anyway, you'll see where it says to exercise. That's right. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by secession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by consent of the legislator to the states, and blah, blah. Anyway. So, yeah. There you go. Congress, that's under Article 1, so that's Congress. Congress is supposed to be in charge. Well, they were. Congress was in charge. Seriously, they were. All the way up to the District of Columbia Home Rule Act of 1973. That's right. It went all the way to 1973, Congress being in charge of the District of Columbia. From 1791 or so, when the Constitution was finally ratified, all the way up till 1973. This is just amazing that it took all that time to get it up to that. And, yeah. Anyway, the Home Rule Act is the result of a consistent ongoing push by the district residents for control of their own local affairs. Up until the Home Rule Act got passed and enacted by Congress and ratified by the district voters, which created a council composed of a chairman, elected at large, and 12 members, 4 of whom are elected at large, and 1 from each of the district's 8 wards. Now, a member is elected to serve a 4-year term. They pushed for this. And, yeah. All of these, basically, folks, I mean, you can go and check this out. If you just search up DC Home Rule and you'll be able to see the Home Rule Act and everything else. But man, what a mess. What a complete and utter mess. But Donald Trump does say, hey, we should take it back over because, crime would go way down. And this was at a cabinet meeting yesterday where he was asked how he wanted Republican voters to vote in the upcoming New York City mayoral election, which, of course, he said that, if a communist gets elected to New York, it will never be the same. So, and that's when he floated about, we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. We could run D.C. We're looking at D.C. We don't want crime in D.C. We want the city to run well. Yeah. So, unfortunately, Donald, I'm sorry, but constitutionally, you wouldn't be able to do it. I'm sorry. You wouldn't. It should revert back to Congress. Congress should be the ones that would run D.C. That's where it's supposed to be in the first place. So, yeah. Anyway. Now, what's sad about this is that even some senators don't know about this because Senator Mike Lee of Utah pointed out that it was time to deal with Washington, D.C.'s home rule and to have D.C.'s law made by Congress. So he knows a little bit about it. But again, I mean, yeah, the White House doesn't run it. The White House doesn't run it. It would be Congress. So, anyway, yeah. So Lee apparently posted on X, he said, as President Trump seems to be contemplating, it's time to repeal D.C. Home Rule and have D.C. laws made by Congress, consistent with Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. There you go. Clause 17 of the Constitution. And he has the bill. He's calling it the Bowser Act. He says, I have a bill, the Bowser Act, that would do precisely that, make D.C. safe again. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. So, sometimes, like I said, sometimes I think Donald Trump just sort of floats things out there just to, say something and see what happens in that case. What are you doing? What are you doing, dog? Yeah. Anyway. All right. So I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway. So Biden's doctor. Well, he dodged all kinds of questions. In a House closed-door interview, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, his lawyers have asked for the House GOP probe to be paused. Oh, they don't want the reality coming out. They don't want it. His interview, his closed-door interview, ended after less than an hour this morning, with the doctor giving investigators virtually zero new insights. O'Connor pleaded the Fifth Amendment to multiple questions about his time with former President Joe Biden during his sit-down. It resulted to a hasty end of what could have been an hours-long deposition. Committee Chairman James Comer said, I'm going to read the first two questions that were asked. Here's question number 1. Were you ever told to lie about the president's health? O'Connor pleaded the fifth. He would not answer that question. Second question. Did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duty? He pleaded the fifth to that one. Comer said, this is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire that there was a cover-up. Oh, yeah. Look, okay. When somebody pleads the fifth, and let's be completely honest here, when somebody who is accused of something and pleads the fifth, it is supposed to be neither an admission of guilt, nor is it to be taken as such. However, in certain cases, like this one, it basically demonstrates that, well, something funky went on. Because if something funky did not go on, then why would you feel the need to protect yourself? Because remember, the Fifth Amendment is you can't perjure yourself. You can't testify against yourself. I plead the fifth because my answer may incriminate me. May incriminate you in what? May incriminate you in a crime. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, this doesn't look good. I mean, it never really looks good when you plead the fifth, but at the same time, though, let's give this guy the benefit of the doubt. He's basically trying to protect himself, which, honestly, that's what he should do. That's what he should do, is he should protect himself. So the doctor's lawyers, of course, said that same thing. They said that O'Connor's refusal to answer questions on the Fifth Amendment grounds was not an admission of guilt, but rather a response to what they saw as an unprecedented investigatory scope that would have violated the bounds of patient-client privilege, or patient-physician privilege. Sorry. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. But, that honestly, those questions aren't really revealing were you ever told to lie about the president's health? That could be anything. He could have been told to lie about it having a boil on his foot. He could have been told to lie about the fact that he's losing his hair. It doesn't necessarily indicate directly that he was told to lie about anything negative. Could have been something positive. Who knows? But this one, did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duty? I don't know. That one I don't think necessarily reveals any kind of speciality or any medical information other than the fact that the guy was just unfit. We all knew that especially after that abysmal debate. But anyway, it's stuff like this that, of course, increases the conspiracy theorists, even though this is actually not a theory. This is a actual conspiracy that's being played out right before our eyes. But the conspiracy theorists run around with stuff like this. It's inaccuracies. It's questionable behavior. It's those kinds of things that fuel the fire, and this is just going to do nothing but fuel the fire in terms of him, the doctor, and Joe Biden having the mental faculties to be president of the United States. Obviously, the next question that really should have been asked, which, again, he probably would have pled the fifth, would have been like, well, at what point did you consider Joe Biden to be unfit for president? Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Honestly, I really don't even know if there's going to be, even if there would be any kind of a response about all this, or even any kind of a, punishment or whatever for this. Realistically, I just don't seem to know. And, we've had so many other things that have been like, yeah, he should be punished. Nothing's happened yet. So, yeah. Anyway. Well, the Supreme Court, let's kind of scoot on. So the Supreme Court, just a couple of weeks ago, not that long ago, they put out a opinion that basically said, although again, and I called this out, that the soft language that the Supreme Court uses in some of their opinions make it to where people can sort of, did they really mean that? Or is it just like supposition or whatever? What I'm talking about is the resulting opinion in the birthright citizenship case that was brought forth. Now, it wasn't over birthright citizenship itself. It was about the overreach. The question that was proposed to the court was about the overreach of the lower courts. And in the ensuing opinion that came out of it, there was the suggestion by the Supreme Court justices, again, it was a 6-3 decision, but there was a suggestion that the lower courts may have overstepped, notice the term may have overstepped their constitutional boundaries. They didn't actually, unfortunately, and I called this out when we were talking about this, the Supreme Court didn't actually come out and say, hey, dumbass district court people, judges, hit you upside the head because you overstepped your boundaries. They didn't use that kind of language. They said, well, yeah, we kind of sort of think that you did. See, this is part of the problem with having somebody like Chief Justice Roberts. Chief Justice Roberts likes to soften things, likes to narrowly apply opinions. I guarantee you that if Clarence Thomas was the one writing the opinion, was the Chief Justice, he'd have been like, the opinion would have basically just been, yeah, you guys overstepped your boundaries. That's it. You're done. Well, that's opened up the door. Because again, that hasn't stopped the lawfare. It certainly hasn't stopped a lot of the cases. And we have another case that is percolating up through the courts that has to deal with about Planned Parenthood's funding. So this court, or this judge, Judge Indira Talawani of the District of Massachusetts, went ahead and imposed a temporary restraining order on Monday, directing the Department of Health and Human Services to ensure that Planned Parenthood gets Medicaid funding. Even though the law, the one big beautiful bill, has been signed into law that takes this away. So here we are. We have another rogue activist judge who is basically saying that, yeah, I'm going to interfere with Congress's ability to hold the power of the purse to determine whether or not funding actually goes to certain things. Now, I'm going to point this out once again. If you look in the Constitution of the United States under Article 1, Section 8, any one of those clauses that are under that, I don't know of any one of those clauses that can be applied to healthcare as a broad general sense of the term. And also, too, not one of those clauses under Article 1, Section 8 can be applied specifically to abortion. So all of that being said, what you end up with is things like Medicaid, Medicare, even Social Security is not part of the one of those. And therefore, all of it falls to the 10th Amendment. And what's even better is the fact that the judge is now telling Congress, yeah, you're in charge of the purse according to the Constitution. But now, well, I'm going to interfere. You have to pay this. Yeah. No. Oh my gosh. This makes no sense. The Supreme Court of the United States has pretty much said, yeah, you know what? We think the district judges, district courts have stepped out of their boundaries. Again, even though they didn't specifically state it in hard language. And this is, again, part of the problem. These Supreme Court opinions need to come out and just say in hard language, yes, no, or whatever. If they get into a maybe, that would be a maybe. But there isn't even a maybe here. They literally, the district court judges, there is no law that basically says that, hey, you can issue a nationwide injunction on this. And so this particular judge, ignoring that particular order, has now issued an injunction on this purely congressional option here to decide whether or not to send money to a organization that honestly shouldn't be getting money in the first place because it's unconstitutional. Well, it's not just this. You know, again, this isn't the only one. There's another one out there too that's out there. And this particular judge, by the way, she is an activist. She is not a jurist. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that she, in June 2023, she sided with the Massachusetts School District to prevent a 12-year-old student from wearing a T-shirt that said there are only two genders at school. Yeah. And then she also blocked the Trump administration's deportations, which, by the way, the Supreme Court overruled. All right. She has presided over an award from Chinese progressives. So in 2012 and again in 2013, the year before Obama nominated Talwani as a district court judge, she accepted the Workers' Justice Award from the Chinese Progressive Association of Boston, according to Ballotpedia. So the organization is a left-of-center community organizing group, according to the Capital Research Center. They, yeah. And before that, she was an organized labor lawyer, and she is a staunch Democrat donor. As well, in 2004, she contributed $1,000 to then presidential candidate John Kerry, then Democrat presidential candidate John Kerry, who was a Massachusetts senator at the time. In 2011, she also donated $200 to the successful Senate campaign of none other than Elizabeth Warren. Hiawatha. In 2006, Talwani also gave $100 to Democrat candidate for Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, who went on to win the election. Yeah. She also sentenced Felicity Huffman in 2019 to 14 days in prison, 1 year of supervised release, and a fine of $30,000 in the fraud in college admissions case. So she was a part of that as well, even though that wasn't really a political case, but that just kind of gives you an idea of where this particular judge is from. But seriously, these district judges are starting to step over their boundaries. Totally. And the Supreme Court needs to tighten up their language and get it correct. Well, one thing the Supreme Court did today is so there were, let me just tell you, actually, sorry, yesterday. So the Supreme Court yesterday declined a second request to shield the identities of police officers that are fighting a public records request that is seeking information about their attendance at the January 6th rally at the U.S. Capitol. Now, these 4 unidentified current and former Seattle law enforcement officers have already said that they were investigated and cleared of wrongdoing in connection with their attendance at the rally. The officers argue that even though they have been cleared of any accusations of wrongdoing, Seattle officials have tarnished their reputations, including the officers' names in court records, would compound their problem of dealing with Seattle loser moron Democrat officials by infringing upon what they call their First Amendment rights and chilling their ability to express their political opinions, they say. Well, the Supreme Court denied to hear the case. They declined it a second time. The Washington Supreme Court ruled in February that the Seattle officers do not have a right to remain anonymous in public. Seattle officials have claimed that the rally was for, quote, fascists and white supremacists. Yeah, January 6th was really about that. Yeah, sure. Anyway, they also claimed that they have attempted to paint guilt by association, wondering aloud on the purpose for the officers' attendance at the rally, obviously insinuating that they are tied to right-wing extremists. The officers stated in a prior application to the court that the court rejected on June 4th. So this is no surprise, Justice Elena Kagan, acting alone yesterday, denied the newer emergency application brought in the case known as John Doe's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 4, and 5 versus the Seattle Police Department. Kagan did not explain why she rejected the application. She chose not to refer the application to the full court. The application was originally filed on June 25th, may be revisited by the U.S. Supreme Court. Under court rules, applicants are allowed to direct an application rejected by a single justice to another justice. So they might be able to direct it to somebody a little more, shall we say, sympathetic to their particular scenario. So anyway, the officers did sue the city of Seattle after they learned of that the public record requests about their attendance at the rally have been initiated. The officers asked the court to stay a June 18th order from King County, Washington Superior Court that unsealed certain court documents and directed them to refile their lawsuits using their true names. On June 23rd, the Washington State Court of Appeals decided not to stay that lower court order, which means that the officers cannot litigate using pseudonyms. The fact that the officers intend to file a petition for certiorari or review with the U.S. Supreme Court means that the Washington Supreme Court cannot stay the lower court orders. That court's rules forbid it from staying a lower court's orders pending the filing of a petition for certiorari with the U.S. Supreme Court, the application said. This means that the officers are out of options in the Washington State Court, and this realization prompted their latest application to the U.S. Supreme Court. This is going to be kind of interesting because especially in the time frames that we're dealing with in terms of things like ICE wearing masks, there's a bill that is being proposed in Congress that is attempting, by Democrats, that is attempting to make it so that the ICE agents cannot protect their identities, that they need to not have masks on, that they can't even use like the GETTR type masks to help protect their identities. Now, normally this probably wouldn't be much of a problem, except for the fact that nowadays these leftist lunatics will take a photograph, run, facial recognition on it, and open source information and be able to glean their the identities of these people And then, of course, dox them and place it online and place them on hit lists and, so on and so forth. Just all kinds of evil, disgusting things. So, yeah. Anyway. What a bit of a mess. And, of course, it had to be Kagan who kicked it back. Well, you recall Justice Amy Coney Barrett in that birthright citizenship case, basically saying that Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent and her logic was not logical. Of course, she said it. She said it in a little bit more of a we dismiss her arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like Amy Coney Barrett is not the only one. So where this stems from is there was a case that showed up at the Supreme Court with regards to federal workforce cuts. And the Supreme Court ruled yesterday that Donald Trump's plans to downsize the federal workforce is essentially okay. And they overrode the lower court order that temporarily froze the cuts. Well, those were originally led, of course, by the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. The court said in an unsigned order that no specific cuts were actually in front of the justices. And an executive order issued by Trump and an administrative directive for agencies to undertake job reductions was essentially not necessarily outside of the law because of the fact that the executive action essentially stated that it needs to abide by applicable law. Let me see if I can find the, So because the executive order directs these agencies to plan for reorganizations and reductions in force consistent with applicable law, this is where the justices, and it was an 8-1 decision, by the way. The only dissension was Ketanji Brown Jackson. And here's the thing. Jackson explicitly asserted that the issue at hand was the matter of the restructuring. Well, 8 of the other justices said, no, that's not what's in front of us. What's in front of us here is not a plan to restructure federal agencies in a manner that's inconsistent with the congressional mandates, because the plans themselves are not before the court at this stage. And so she says, we have no occasion to consider whether they can and will be carried out consistent with the constraints of law. So Jackson, of course, was saying, hey, the matter at hand is it's a matter of the restructuring. Sotomayor said, yeah, no, that's not what's in front of us. What the issue is that's in front of us right now is Executive Order number 14210, which affects a massive restructuring of the federal government. However, as long as it's within consistent law, we're fine. I mean, I don't know how stupid or how unintelligent. I'm not necessarily going to call her stupid because, she may be a moron, but let's just face it, okay? Let's just face it that, she obviously has to have some sort of intelligence in her brain. Maybe she doesn't apply it, but she has to have some. I mean, she did pass the bar. She got to sort of where she was. I mean, she was picked by Joe Biden realistically because she was a black woman. That's it. But the thing is that when you have one of your own compatriots meaning one of your own activist judges that has been on the court for quite a while rebuking you, especially after you just got rebuked by one of the newer justices who is not on the left side of the aisle for your activist ideals and your lack of understanding and comprehension of the law at hand. I mean, all this does is this just basically shows how she is not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer, at least dealing with the law. Of course, we all pretty much knew. The minute that she said, well, I don't know what a woman is, during the Senate hearings, that should have tanked her ass right there. It really should have. Now, I'm going to address a question by Jarhead over on Rumble because it's important to understand this. So, Jarhead asks, if they find that Joe was senile and not fit to be president, can we get Brown's nomination revoked? The answer to that, honestly, is no. And the reason being is, as much as we would like to, it actually isn't the president who approves the nomination. You have to remember, it's with the advice and consent of the Senate, meaning that she has to go through Senate approval. And so it isn't just Joe. I mean, granted, he's the one that nominated her, but just because she got nominated by him doesn't necessarily mean that she can get her seat on the bench taken away. I wish it were the case, but because you have the Senate involved, I highly doubt that there would be a legal case that one could make that all of the senators who approved of her nomination would actually be the ones that could also be put up on trial and say, hey, yeah, all these senators got the wool pulled over their eyes because Joe Biden was just so damn dumb. You know, he was so senile and everything else, and they just went along with it. That would be incredibly difficult to prove in court. That would be incredibly difficult to approve or to prove in court. And so, honestly, I don't see where that would be the case. I honestly don't think that that is going to be the position. And also, too, keep in mind, there is nothing, because unfortunately, Article 3 was the last one that was written before as the, Constitutional Convention was ending. So, yeah. I honestly don't think that could be pulled back. Now, as far as like his auto pen debacle, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that one you would have, I think, a legal case to basically say, hey, you know, this guy obviously didn't know what the auto pen was signing for him. And so therefore, you know, all of those pardons and everything that hit with the auto pen, that I could say that would be a logical thing to be rescinded, along with any executive orders, or even potentially, I mean, because he has to sign things into law, if he is found senile, there could be some Democrat laws that could possibly be on the chopping block if they could find out when he became senile and, lost his mind and didn't know what he was doing and everything else. There is a potential there. But as far as Jackson's appointment is concerned, no, I don't think so. I wish, but I don't think so. All right. So yeah. So there you go. And the Supreme Court, of course, has said that, yeah, this can continue. So once again, the Supreme Court has given another definitive victory, according to the White House spokesman Harrison Fields, speaking in a statement, said, "Today's U.S. Supreme Court ruling is another definitive victory for the president and his administration. It clearly rebukes the continued assaults on the president's constitutionally authorized executive powers by leftist judges who are trying to prevent the president from achieving government efficiency across the federal government." Yep. So, yeah. There you go. Yep. Anyway, so these are going to be moving forward and, in accordance with applicable law. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, Jarhead asks, so if her nomination was done via autopen, it's not the nomination that's the problem. The problem is the fact that the Senate confirmed her. See, if the Senate wasn't involved, if it was just him nominating and she gets confirmed right away without the Senate being a part of the process, then you could make that argument. You could say that he didn't know what he was doing. And potentially, I mean, in terms of a legal stance, you could potentially say that, yeah, he didn't know what he was doing and therefore it's null and void. But because the Senate is involved and the Senate confirmation hearings are involved, it's a little difficult to prove in a court of law that all of them just sort of followed along with him and just, rubber stamped her butt into the Supreme Court. Now, that could be exactly what happened, but it'd be a little bit difficult to prove it in a court of law and to basically say that, yeah, now we need to back this out. And folks, we're seeing all kinds of constitutional issues. We're seeing a bunch of holes in the Constitution right now. So, again, so there you go. All right. Well, let me go ahead and do this real quick before I move on to my next subject. All right. Hey, everyone. Tired of paying outrageous prices for your medications while other countries pay a fraction of the cost? President Trump just signed an executive order to fix this problem, but why would you want to wait? BlockbusterHealth.com. That's BlockbusterHealth, all one word, .com, is already offering Americans these savings right now. We're talking up to 80% off the exact same medications that you're already taking, the same brands, the same quality, just fair prices. Whether it's Ozempic, insulin, or any other prescription, Blockbuster Health connects you directly with licensed pharmacies that offer international pricing. No middleman, no markup, just honest prices. You want these prices? You want to check it out and see if you can save yourself some money? Go ahead and call 1-888-350-1353. That's 1-888-350-1353. Or you can visit blockbusterhealth.com. That's blockbusterhealth altogether.com. You can visit there. Americans shouldn't have to choose between their health and their wallet. Call 1-888-350-1353 or visit blockbusterhealth.com to check out whether or not you can save on prescription drug medications and pay international prices rather than the prices that you may find here in the American pharmacies. Call 1-888-350-1353 or visit blockbusterhealth.com. Check it out today. All right. So, out of tragedy, there comes at a time, often times, there comes a story of heroic actions, of heroism, of perseverance, of determination. And with the Texas tragedy, there is one story that is prevalent, demonstrating the heroism and the hard work of one young man. That is tonight's Highlighting America. Ladies and gentlemen, often the Coast Guard, especially in terms of the other military services, gets a bit of a bad rap. They call them coasties. They call them puddle pirates. They call them all kinds of things. But I got to tell you, for the specialization that they do in terms of rescue operations, they are just incredible. And tonight's Highlighting America, I want to point out an American hero, Coast Guard swimmer who has been praised for saving 165 people from the flood in and around Camp Mystic. Okay. The real heroes, he says, were the kids on the ground. He's like, those guys are historic. This young man right here that you see in this photo, let me go ahead and bring it in. This young man that you see in this photo his name is Scott Ruskin. Scott Ruskin, and he is a Coast Guard swimmer who was on site and performing rescues throughout the entire tragedy that was going on in Texas, in and around Camp Mystic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these people are constantly on alert. They are helping people out in some of the most dangerous places on the planet. For an example, the Bering Strait, which is probably one of the most dangerous waterways that the America coastline actually has. And I got to tell you, they go out in all kinds of weather. They do things that most others wouldn't even dream about. And these rescue swimmers, if anybody has watched the movie The Guardian, it's a Kevin Costner flick, Kevin Costner, Ashton Kutcher flick. And I got to tell you, I mean, it's one of my favorites. And to be honest with you, if even half of what they showed as the training and the requirements to become a Coast Guard rescue swimmer are even partially true in that film, I got to tell you, it's pretty exemplary, the type of training that these young men and women go through. Let me tell you a little bit about this young man. Scott Ruskin is being hailed as a hero for helping rescue more than 160 people at Camp Mystic during the flash floods that raged over central Texas this weekend. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said that Ruskin directly saved 165 people from the floodwaters that inundated Camp Mystic. Scott Ruskin is an American hero, Noem stated on social media platform X. His selfless courage embodies the spirit and mission of the U.S. Coast Guard. It was Ruskin's first rescue mission as a rescue swimmer. The first time that he has ever done this. The rescue team was dispatched from Coast Guard Air Station in Corpus Christi after receiving a report at 5:57 a.m. on July 4th about the rising floodwaters near Kerrville, Texas, according to the U.S. Coast Guard. In an interview with Good Morning America, Ruskin recalled that nearly 200 people, mostly children, were later found in need of rescue as floodwaters surged through the area. He said, I got on scene, boots on the ground at Camp Mystic. I kind of discovered I was the only person there as far as first responders go. So I had about 200 kids, or 200 kids mostly, all scared, terrified, cold, and having probably the worst day of their life. I just kind of needed to triage them, get them to a higher level of care, and get them off the flood zone. So the U.S. Army National Guard helicopters used the camp's archery and soccer fields as landing zones during the rescue. Ruskin said he was kind of the main guy as far as grabbing people, taking groups of 10 to 15 people, including some adults at a time, to the aircraft, which then airlifted them to the landing zones for safety. The U.S. Coast Guard stated that Ruskin helped evacuate a total of 230 victims at the scene. He also provided them with medical assistance during the rescue mission, according to the July 5th statement. Ruskin said, "The real heroes, I think, were the kids on the ground. Those guys are heroic. They were dealing with some of the worst times of their lives, and they were staying strong, and that helped inspire me to get in there and help them." So this guy did what he was trained to do for the very first time ever in a very successful mission. Even though several were still lost, he helped save, this young man helped save many hundreds of people. He helped save hundreds of people. And I got to say, hats off to you there, Coastie. You may be a puddle pirate, but you're all right in my book. So, yeah, let's go ahead and give him a round of applause for sure. His bravery and cool-headedness was able to get people to safety. And, yeah, so there you go. Congratulations to him for his successful first outing. And I'm sure he will definitely remember that as his successful first outing. I like to highlight things like this for highlighting America. I wish I did that a little bit more, but I don't see these very often. So, yeah, I appreciate the fact that there are stories out there, and I try to bring them in the Highlighting America segment. Well, unfortunately, I got to move on. We can, say God bless that young man and everything that he did, and I wish there were more heroic and, America First people who especially worked in our government. Unlike these two dipshits. Yes, I did say that. So the FBI reports are saying, according to DOJ sources, the FBI has decided to launch criminal investigations into both John Brennan and James Comey. CIA Director John Ratcliffe referred Brennan for criminal investigation to the FBI, according to sources. Acquired by Fox News Digital. So, yeah, here is an announcement regarding it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
On our breaking news, Brooks Singman of Fox News Digital has discovered exclusively that the FBI is now investigating the former CIA Director John Brennan and the former FBI Director James Comey in conjunction with the genesis of the Russia investigation. This comes after the CIA declassified last week a report into how that all came about. Let's bring in our panel to talk more about this. Andy Linsky, the White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, USA Today White House correspondent, Francesca Chambers, and Josh Holmes, co-host of the Ruthless podcast and former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. Andy, start us off here. The fact that the FBI is looking into Brennan and Comey now, when this declassified CIA report came out, people said, will prosecutions follow? We don't know if it'll be a prosecution, but it's an investigation at this point.
Yeah, this is certainly the logical next step from last week's news. And it does really underscore, I think, the extent to which this Russia investigation that occurred in 2017, I believe, has stayed under the president's skin and sort of in his craw. He has personally sued members of the Pulitzer board for giving a Pulitzer Prize to the Washington Post and the New York Times kind of surrounding on this topic. So I think this sort of move fits into this broader concern that the president has about this moment.
Josh.
Now, these guys, these two people, excuse me for just a second because I messed up and I'm not going to get this back without doing this.
Josh, I talked to Ratcliffe about
Hold
this
on.
declassified report last week.
Okay.
He said, look, this is the director of analysis.
Yeah.
This
So
is a person who's been
basically,
at the CIA.
these guys, these two, they created, well, John Brennan in particular, apparently pushed very hard to put what is now known as the debunked Steele dossier, by the way, paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Okay. He pushed to get that Steele dossier placed within the CIA's and the intelligence briefings documents. And the CIA and the intelligence organizations, there were several people who were saying, look, this Steele dossier is like, it's not that, it's not our typical thing to go and do this. It's not typical to have a high-ranking official like John Brennan, essentially put his thumb on the investigation. And also, too, they had uncorroborated reports of that Steele dossier that basically were like, yeah, we can't confirm this thing. And so for us to go ahead and include it is sort of out of the norm for all of us. And yet, what do? Well, they went ahead and they included it, and they started this entire hoax of an investigation into Russian collusion in the incoming president to the United States back in Trump 1. These guys, and what's even worse, though, is Comey, actually, in particular, was the one that oversaw the whole email probe. In fact, you'll recall Hillary Clinton, the Hillary Clinton email scandal. You'll recall that his butt said, oh, yeah, we're not going to refer her to prosecution. Now, here's the thing, though, is that the FBI doesn't usually make that statement. They gather the evidence. They figure out essentially the potential crimes. They take it to the lawyers, to the DOJ, the Attorney General, and they say, hey, here's all the evidence. And then the DOJ is the one that has to get has to make the idea or make the decision on whether or not they want to prosecute. But Comey, in his announcement about the whole Hillary Clinton email thing, said no. Yeah, we have evidence that Hillary possibly committed a crime here, but yeah, we're not gonna prosecute. I mean, that's essentially what he said in his statement to the press with regards to this. Well, for him to have his fingers in this situation is even worse. So DOJ sources told Fox News Digital that an investigation into the former director, Comey, was underway. Sources said that the referral was received and told Fox News Digital that a criminal investigation into Brennan has been opened and is underway as well. They declined to provide any further details. So it's unclear at the moment whether or not this investigation spans beyond Brennan's alleged false statements to Congress. The full scope is unclear. The two sources described the FBI's view of the duo's interactions as a conspiracy, which could open up a wide range of potential prosecutorial options. Now, the FBI and the CIA, of course, declined to comment, and neither Brennan nor Comey immediately responded to Fox News Digital's request for comment. So the Brennan investigation itself, of course, comes after Ratcliffe last week declassified a lessons learned review of the creation of the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, which alleged that Russia sought to influence the 2016 presidential election to help then candidate Donald Trump. But the review found that the process of the ICA's creation was rushed. Procedural anomalies and other officials diverted from intelligence, and that the ICA was diverted from intelligence standards. So, yeah. The CIA statement also said the decision by agency heads to include the Steele dossier in the ICA ran counter to fundamental Craycraft principles and ultimately undermined the credibility of a key judgment. So it was just to recall everybody, okay? Just to recall, the dossier, the Steele dossier, was commissioned by Fusion GPS, paid for by Democrat presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democrat National Committee. Been widely discredited. And yet there are still stupid-ass leftists that are running around on social media saying that Trump is a Russia guy. He's not even close. I mean, he's not. He's not even close. So, yeah. Anyway, the records that were declassified as part of the review also further revealed that Brennan did, in fact, push for the dossier to be included, like I said. Brennan testified to the House Judiciary Committee in May of 2023, however, that he did not believe the dossier should have been included. So that's where his potential perjury comes into play. So, yeah. Ratcliffe, of course, said that he was not, or didn't say, but it was said to have said that he was not surprised by the review's findings, according to a source familiar. Given the director's long history of criticizing Brennan's politicization of the intelligence. But Ratcliffe was compelled to refer aspects of Brennan's involvement to the FBI for review of possible criminality. Source was unable to share the sensitive details of Ratcliffe's criminal referral to the FBI, but said that Brennan violated the public's trust and should be held accountable for it. And the false statement portion of the probe stems from the newly declassified email sent to Brennan by former deputy CIA director in 2016. That message said that including the dossier in the ICA in any capacity jeopardized the credibility of the entire paper. Yeah. So basically, Brennan is in trouble, and thankfully, Comey is also in trouble. So, yeah. So there we go. There we go. So, don't know if anything's going to come of it, to be honest with you. But, yeah. Yeah. We'll just have to kind of see what the heck happens here. I personally hope that they are brought to justice, for that. So, anyway. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, all right. So let's move on to the international desk. You know, Bibi Netanyahu visited the White House here in the last couple of days, and sorry, had to take a drink. Bibi Netanyahu visited the White House, and what a lot of people don't know, although I caught this clip, was the fact that Bibi has actually nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And yes, Bonnie, we do have a pet of the week. And so Bibi Netanyahu sent a letter off to the Nobel folks and nominated Donald Trump for a peace prize. that follows along with, I guess, Pakistan also nominated Donald Trump, according to certain reports, for the Peace Prize as well. Well, I don't know if that necessarily has any effect on what's going on here, but Trump is apparently reportedly exerting heavy pressure on Netanyahu to end Gaza. So President Trump is, according to two sources close to the ceasefire negotiations, is basically saying that the U.S. pressure on Israel has begun. So there you go. Netanyahu arrived in Washington, D.C. early Monday morning, has been holding meetings with Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio. Additional meetings were supposed to take place yesterday, and the Israeli leader is scheduled to remain in Washington until tomorrow. The Monday night dinner between Trump and Netanyahu reportedly focused on the Gaza ceasefire deal, with the broader implications for the region. While Trump seeks to solidify his legacy as a peacemaker, Netanyahu's strategic objectives, including the elimination of Hamas, remain a key factor in the negotiations. So, yeah, there you go. So he's, Trump doesn't like long-term wars. He never has. And while he has given or was willing to give Israel the ability to go and just do what they need to do and take care of business, he's certainly not going to let them just drag everything on. Sooner or later, there has to be an off-ramp, which apparently is something that he is probably talking to Putin about. Even though Putin, in terms of the Ukraine war, Putin has no intention of finishing that off. Putin wants nothing but Ukraine to be back as a part of Russia, period. That's all he wants. And, yeah. So Donald Trump doesn't like long-term wars. He never has. And he's always pointed that out. He's always mentioned that on multiple occasions. He has never once said anything. In fact, he was very happy to get rid of the Iran-Israel strikes and everything that was going on, that 12-day war. So, yeah. Anyway. We'll see what happens, but that would be nice to end this. All right. So last night I did an extensive piece on Epstein. And of course, again, just pointing it out and reiterating, you have to make the choice. You personally have to make the choice as to whether or not you believe the people who are in charge, whether it's Pam Bondi, who admittedly, I think personally she screwed up. I think she really screwed up with the presentation of the binders like they did, with the fact that she said that the Epstein list was on her desk when she actually meant the Epstein files were on her desk. Her lack of being explicit about what she had and what she didn't sort of set up this entire situation. But at the same time, though, to sit here and come up with the idea that all of a sudden, just because they came from the private sector and became operatives within the government, that they are already in a situation where, they're not going to say the truth. I mean, Dan Bongino walked away from his Secret Service job because he had a hard time with some of the stuff that was going on. And that being said, Dan has also pursued this and been saying all the times that he wants to release the list. And so for him to go in there and find out and announce basically to everybody that, hey, actually there is no list, seems a little antithetical to what's going on. Well, there's one possible explanation as to why there is no list. And this, in particular, this theory comes from a former CIA officer. And he basically says, yeah, the deep state likely destroyed the entire Epstein files long ago. So this guy's a former CIA officer. He's claimed that the deep state has probably destroyed the Jeffrey Epstein files, or the list, a long time ago. And the reason being, of course, is because of the fact that he believes, and this is former CIA officer John Kirkou, K-I-R-I-A-K-O-U. I probably mincemeated the entire pronunciation of that. But he was on Fox News, Fox News's show with Jesse Waters, and he basically said that the Epstein files were likely destroyed before Kash Patel and Bongino even got to the FBI. And I'm basically saying the exact same thing. I mean, so here again, just to kind of reiterate this from last night, you can go back and listen to my entire, it almost took the entire episode. But here's my basic points. Assuming that there was a list, if Donald Trump or any other political rival to the left had been on that list, I guarantee you that list would have been leaked. You can look at people like Schiff. You can look at people like, any other Democrat that's out there that's just, they leak like a sieve. So if this existed in any way, shape, or form, further than what's already been produced in the public, it would have been plastered everywhere. It would have been plastered everywhere. So that, the absence of that indicates to me one of two possibilities. Possibility one is that there actually never was a list. And possibility two is that Donald Trump or other Republicans, political rivals, didn't show up on it. Because I guarantee you the last administration, had they had that silver bullet with all of the crap that they sent after Donald Trump and made up everything on Donald Trump, they would have immediately produced that list. Believe me, I guarantee it, that would have happened, but it didn't. And so that indicates, without a shadow of doubt, either the list didn't exist or this person, these people, did not show up. Now, the flight logs, as Bonnie points out, those have pretty much already been put out into the public space. Okay? And realistically, and I got to tell you, Ben Shapiro did a really good episode. If I know Ben Shapiro's kind of hard to listen to on a lot of things, but he did a really good episode on his podcast today, outlining this entire thing, where the cases came from, some of the theories, where all of this stuff, and he outlines a very logical conclusion to this whole thing. But here's the deal. If there was anything incriminating, especially on the Democrats, it would have been gone under the last administration. They would have gotten rid of it. They would have done everything that they could to hide all of that. Now, the claim that Epstein did not traffic anybody is false. Epstein trafficked people. The question is, though, whether or not he trafficked them for himself versus whether or not he trafficked them for other people. Now, there's indications that Epstein's money, and again, Ben Shapiro goes through this, Epstein's money came from relationships that he knew from especially two or three particular millionaires. Now, what that money was transferred and what that money was for, some could assume or make the assumption or make the inference that it came from his trafficking. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have very much evidence toward that end. That at the moment, there isn't that much evidence on all of this. But all of that being said, again, I just go back to the point. If, assuming that there was an actual Epstein list, this is a plausible, with this CIA former director, this is a plausible result as to why the Epstein list doesn't exist today. Because it's gone. And again, Ghislaine Maxwell, close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. They entirely did it for themselves, for sure. The question is whether or not they did it for other people. And this is where the evidence starts breaking down in terms of what's going on. Yes, Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein himself, was a sick bastard. We know this. Okay, we know this. But whether or not they did it only for themselves, and keep in mind, Ghislaine Maxwell was not charged with trafficking for other people. She was only charged with the counts that directly connected her and Epstein. There isn't any further other charges of where other people came from. If you go back through the court records, it specifically states it was her directly and Epstein directly. There wasn't any inference or anything even found during the course of discovery in these trials that realistically stepped beyond this. Now, there's a lot of suggestion, but nothing in terms of actual evidence that points in the direction. We have a lot of conspiracy theories, but no real evidence to necessarily solidify that theory into conspiracy. And so all of that being the case, the question that you have to ask yourself now is, do you actually trust Kash Patel? Do you actually trust Dan Bongino? Do you actually trust Donald Trump? Do you trust Pam Bondi? Do you trust J.D. Vance? All of these people that you've been putting your trust into and thinking, hey, they're going to go in and clean it up. And now that they've revealed that, hey, there really isn't anything here, are you going to go back on that now? Are you going to say, hey, I trusted you up until the point that you said that there's nothing here? Or are you going to jump on the bandwagon of, well, they all are now being tied to the conspiracy, which is very easy to do. I, for one, will make the assumption at this point that the Epstein files and the Epstein case is pretty much closed until other evidence presents itself otherwise. And as of right now, I will take especially Dan Bongino at his word in saying, there's nothing here. That's essentially where I'm at with the entire situation. And no, I definitely do not think Donald Trump was ever on the list, because if he were, it would have been plastered everywhere. All right, enough about all of that. Let's get on to tonight's pet of the week. I need to find the key that I used to go ahead and put this in. Here we go. Oh, wait, wrong screen. Hold on. There we go. We got the pet of the week. So last night I made the mistake. I said I didn't have one. It turns out I actually did. I have a pet of the week. That's right. So, yeah, I have a pet of the week. It was submitted by none other than 3 Chevy. So here we go. 3 Chevy writes, "Hey, Whiskey. When we got home from the store today, Mrs. 3 Chevy looked out the window and saw this guy hanging out. And I got to get this guy up. Saw this guy hanging out in the waterfall of our pond. Now, you all recall that 3 Chevy's got this fantastic waterfall feature in his back where he's got his koi fish. Okay. Just fantastic work on this thing. He's put a lot of work and effort into it, and it shows. But anyway, they found this guy, which, if you're looking at the photo, I'm not necessarily going to tell you where it is, but you can take a look. I mean, it's certainly not really hard to see. But anyway, she took this through the window, took the photo through the window, and when I opened the door to the backyard, he immediately turned around and went back inside the waterfall. Chevy says, I knew there was someone in there because the other day I heard splashing, but I couldn't see anything. He said, we had a bumper crop of tadpoles a while back, and I'm guessing our friend here might know something about that. The tadpoles are all gone now. Then he says, in an unrelated story, the fish seem to have been eating good the last few weeks. He's been having some challenges with his fish here recently. But anyway, he continues and says, thanks again for all the hard work you put into the broadcast each evening. I know we all appreciate it. I appreciate that you appreciate it. So here we go. Here's a close-up of Fred the Frog. Nope, I got to get this closer. There's Fred sitting at the top of the waterfall. He's hanging. Fred the Frog. So there he is. That's this week's pet of the week is Fred the Frog. Fred the Frog, he's hanging out. And I actually asked because I really don't know. I don't know the difference between a frog and a toad. I'm not a biologist. Oh, wait a minute. But I do know what a woman is. So at least I've got that on Ketanji Brown Jackson. But anyway, there he is. He's hanging out at the top of the pond. And there you go. So that is tonight's pet of the week. Thank you very much, 3 Chevy. We always love seeing your wonderful creations in your pond. You got some fantastic work in this backyard oasis. And yeah. So Fred the Frog needs to stop eating the tadpoles. Here's the old picture. That's the back. That's the picture that was taken. And here's the close-up. There he is. Right there, Fred the Frog. Yeah. Oh, apparently 3 Chevy says the fish ate the tadpoles. So, there you go. Well, I mean, maybe he's at least taking care of some of the flies or anything that's running. That would be kind of... Anyway. All right. Well, there you go. There's tonight's pet of the week. If you want to feature your pet for pet of the week, all you need to do is send me photos and some sort of a story or just information about the pet. And you can send it to me. You can send it into fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I, of course, will bring it up for Wednesdays. That is our pet of the week night, is Wednesdays. Also, too, don't forget question of the week, which is on Saturday nights. It's the final segment on Saturdays. You can send that to the same thing. You can send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up, or if you really want to, thumbs down if you really, really don't like the show. I take them either way. And do that across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.